Amanda, thank you for participating and spending your time watching Seasons. It's a French film. The pronunciation of that I don't even want to attempt.
Yeah. I didn't know it was French until I started it.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was getting into.
Subtitles were not on when I started watching it. Like, well, let me understand what's going on here. Yeah, there's very minimal subtitles, very minimal talking. It's kind of just a visual feast, and this is what your appetite is for. What did you think as first impressions, or maybe you just want to dump it all? Just go on your soapbox right now. Tell me what you think.
I didn't know what I was getting into. I read the little synopsis, right, and it was like forests, and I was like, okay, that's cool. It was great. It was beautiful, right? It was really beautiful, and then kind of jarring at the end. But I got Redwall vibes from it. Does that make sense?
Okay, so Redwall, for those, I only know Redwall because I work here for forever. I see the books come through, but these little anthropomorphized mice that are little fantasy archers or something.
And badgers and hedgehogs, which
featured
pretty strongly in this film. And the film did a really good job of giving all of the animals kind of personality. You got a little bit of a personality from each of them, so it was interesting. I don't know. Definitely made me think about Redwall.
Yeah. So do you think something about this director's hand is anthropomorphizing these animals by making us attribute some kind of...
Not anthropomorphizing at all, because that means making them more human than they actually are, right?
Well, yeah, I guess maybe I'm wrong and jumping to conclusions, but I guess, animals just have personalities. They don't have to be human to have personalities.
Yeah.
Redwall does a little bit more.
Yeah.
By being a little bit more humanish. But yeah, I mean, your cat, who I guess watched this with you, they've got a personality. The two dogs I've got at home definitely have too much personality than I can handle.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There was a scene with a or some kind of bobcat, right? That was hunting, and it kept 2 or 3 different times, it kept leaping and then falling and kind of stumbling over its feet, and I kind of felt bad for this bobcat. It was kind of a fail until it finally wasn't. I mean, it finally, spoilers, it finally eats something, but yeah, it was kind of goofy, and I totally saw my cat reflected in that for sure.
Yeah, I liked the little outcast wolf that was kind of bullied by the other wolves. Yeah. Oh, I'm just gonna walk away now.
There was kind of a horse that was in the same situation too, right?
Yeah. So that was interesting. I mean, I don't think that's too much. There was some manipulation from the director here. I don't know. Some of this stuff had to be digital. I don't know. There's some impressive chase sequences in this movie.
That had to be CGI, right?
I can't imagine, because there's a couple different packs of wolves chasing either a boar, or there's a pack of wolves chasing these white wild horses. I would really be impressed to see how that's made.
I found myself while I was watching the whole time thinking about what was CGI and what was real, and where this footage actually originated from, because even it opens with a lot of footage of birds, right? Having a lot of personality and being very interesting, and I just, where is this footage coming from?
Yeah, well, so this Jacques Perrin, or however you pronounce his name, I'm going to butcher that. I already did. So he did Microcosmos, which I've seen that. We have that on Blu-ray in the library, or we did at some point. That's a pretty legitimate, just high definition, crazy zoom cameras down under the ground, watching all these bugs just do their thing. So that's just a very much fly on the wall nature documentary. And then the other big one that a lot of people that I've talked to recognize is Winged Migration. Now that's one where they basically take just a flock of seagulls from hatching and train them to be comfortable being around a gyrocopter, an actual aircraft operated by a human. They train these little goslings, or did I say flock of seagulls? I'm such an idiot. I was thinking of the 80s band. Anyway, a gaggle of goslings, whatever. And they train them to fly along with this gyrocopter. That way, when they're a little bit older, they fly in formation with this guy that's got a big camera aiming either way, capturing some really insane footage. But the footage looks great because it's the animals have been really conditioned to be around that camera in their element, I guess. So semi-natural element, but also there's a lot of human intervention to get that footage. So if it's not digital, I would imagine these horses are trained to run, and maybe the horses are real and the wolves are fake, or I don't know what. But it looked semi-convincing.
Yeah, it was pretty convincing.
But there's a lot going on here. So seasons, we start in like a winter, and it's trying to start off. I would guess like I was trying to add it up because they start saying like thousands of years ago, and then 1,000 years later. So I'm guessing that was like 3,000 years ago where we start.
I have no idea. At one point they said like 12,000 years ago. That's when the end of the ice age was, right?
Yeah. So
Game forest.
right. So that's the forest comes out of the ice. It's thawed out. The golden age of the forest, I guess, was however many thousand years ago. And then we go through some seasons, see all these different animals that are just living their life in a forest. And the reason I picked this to go along, our reading for this week, chapters 8 and 9. Chapter 8, the forest and the trees, is chapter 8. But that's very specifically like the reason why this is what I'm reading, or this is the documentary that we're watching for this week. So you said your cat liked it more than you did. What do you mean by
No,
that?
I liked it a lot, but my cat's never watched TV before, and she sat down and like literally watched the whole thing. Like she prairie dogged in front of the television and watched.
Mhm.
She was fascinated. It must have been like all the animal noises or something, but yeah, it was pretty interesting. One thing that I thought was really interesting, right? So like we're going through the seasons of all the animals, and like there's some hunting and some, pack killing and eating, right? Very minimal blood in those.
Right.
But towards the end, man starts becoming more involved, and that's kind of the whole point. Like the golden age of the forest ends because man starts using more tools and everything. Um, there were some really visceral scenes of humans chopping down trees that were uh, far more violent and like disturbing than any of like the hunting or the animal, like the natural eating were. I mean, that was definitely done by the director, but kind of hit me in the gut a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that was something I remember with winged migration. There's like a scene where some animals being eaten by crabs. I don't know if they get downed bird with a broken wing or something, and they hide all that. It's almost like, did it even happen, or is this they just trying to hide it from like our our precious eyeballs, or to protect some kind of ratings? Um, and in this, there's a scene where you it's implied that a boar is being eaten, but you don't really see anything with the leg. But yeah, this movie takes place so much in that forest, and these trees are being attacked, and it's very loud. I mean, you see it zooms in on like the severed remains of the tree.
With like the splinters flying everywhere as it's like being chopped down. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, no, I mean, and yeah, he definitely has some uh, thoughts at the end about how the golden age is over, but also human man is changing the world around him, changing the species around him.
Uh, have you ever gone hiking in the Smokies?
No.
So a couple of years ago, I went for a couple of day hike in the Smokies, and you come out into Gatlinburg, right? Which is just like bright light and flashy, and that's how the end of this movie felt, right? Like because you watch like an hour of just like peaceful, well, not even just like animals and nature and all of that, and then all of a sudden, it's all about man, and there's like a big shot of a giant city, after you've watched forest for forever, and it totally felt like just that, like kind of startling at the end.
Yeah. There's a number of there's a chapter in this book, and then a couple of the other documentaries we have where they've used the word Anthropocene. It's like the new era. I don't think it's officially established, but basically everyone's saying it's undeniable that we're in an era now where man just is the driving force of any change in geology and nature and everything else. And Yeah, there's the document that we watched, Carrie and we discussed this on here, called Anthropocene. Um, there's some imagery in that movie that's a lot like what you're describing with the trees being destroyed, where in Germany there's these I don't know what exactly they're digging for. It's like an open field of coal, but they have these things called just this excavator. It looks like a vehicle in like a Borderlands game. It is like it's a vehicle that's from like the movie Dune or something, where the vehicle itself has like 3 stories and like staircases for people to walk up, and it's got this gigantic arm, and then like, it looks like a gigantic like a circular saw, but each of those, instead of having like notches of a blade, it's got like just scoopers. So it's just like scooping this up, but the scale of this thing is like the size of um, half the size of like a football stadium. It just looks insane. And watching that, it like just scoop up huge chunks of earth, and that is like really weird to see. And then almost the very next scene, and when it cuts, it shows the same kind of company of people tearing down an old church. It's like this little sleepy village in Germany that is right next to, I guess, a very lucrative piece of land that can be mined for coal. So they're just digging and destroying everything around it. Yeah, it's kind of
Humans are the worst.
yeah, it's tough. There's a whole lot of humans, and then we all want certain things, and these different companies are just trying to sell us what we're willing to buy, but at the same time, there's only so much finite resources that we have around us. So yeah, the forest is a good place to be. The forest is a place where we're sometimes when I go out, I get weirded out about ticks and stuff, like making sure I don't get Lyme disease from getting a tick bite. But I'll wear a hat, or I'll check myself for ticks. But yeah, there's something very restorative about walking out in a forest, walking out in the woods. So one day when I get to
like a Japanese thing right now, like forest bathing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there's a term for it, but I can't remember it.
Yeah, but yeah, the translation is literally like, yeah, forest bathing. I forget what I was just saying something about that. Yeah, and there's all kinds of books that I see, not just Japan, but people in the Scandinavian countries. They have different things where especially the Danish, where they're basically prescribing a life of going out in the forest, being out in nature, and then getting into a sauna and just living your life, like forest sauna, and then taking it easy.
I'm in.
Unplugging. Anyway, so this is the imagery in this is something that like really is on par, I think, with all these David Attenborough nature documentaries. There's a little bit more funny, like digital fakery going on, but there's a lot less just David Attenborough talking. This French guy that's narrating, he'll get on and he'll say, probably all said and done, like 20 lines of script throughout the entire hour and a half. But yeah, it weaves in and out. We go weaving out between seasons. We also kind of like weave through connections of animals. I mean, I think ultimately it ends off by saying like, yeah, humans are the ones that can have the control of all this, whether or not this continues or dies off. But before that, it's showing kind of very, at times harshly, but also at times sweetly, like the inner relationship between all these species that are out there in the forest. Like, I guess it's kind of tough to see a little boar or something get eaten up, or a little hedgehog get swooped up by a bird, but you kind of see the circle or the cycle of life and all these little did you have any favorite, or did you have any animals in this that you thought were like insane that you have never seen before?
I don't think so.
There was this little, like, I can't even remember, it was like a little, like a canid, or if it was a cat. It was like this little spotted, long, skinny little, like,
I think that was a mink.
Was that a mink?
I think so.
Yeah, it was so spotted and stuff. Maybe it was a mink. Yeah, it was so interesting looking. Like, what is that?
There were some bird varieties that I've never seen before. There was lots of bird play in this.
Yeah, there was that one bird who we didn't even see him close up. We just saw the back of him, but he's making like Blair Witch sounds. Like, what is all that? Like, yeah, that's one of those moments where I thought I wanted David Attenborough coming in and telling me what was going on. Like, what is this bird? Whisper to me what this bird is.
What did you think about that? like the war scene, right? With that spotted bird.
Oh, about the bird itself, or about that particular
Just
scene in
that
the
scene.
trenches?
Like it kind of felt disjointed a little bit.
Yeah, that's just part of this guy coming in, and I'm sure the French have a much more interesting lens on World War One than we do. Um, and I think that's one of the ugliest, probably wars anyone can look at in a human sense. So I think maybe that's just him marking like the beginning of the downturn of human society.
Yeah.
Like we are already that entrenched in industry, but also the First World War. But he's showing how humans still have a way to find beauty in nature in the middle of all that.
Yeah, but then they had to spoilers, they had to kill the bird. I was actually like mad. I think I yelled at my TV.
I don't know. It's eliciting some kind of response. It's
Yeah,
just
it did.
it yeah, this director, this is totally docudrama slash just straight up movie. I wouldn't even say
It was a
film.
movie for
It's just a
sure.
movie. Yeah. But it's really a feast of visual splendor with anyone who can appreciate, well, digital nature. I'm trying to think just nature, but I don't know what's real and what's not. So I don't know. I watch Lord of the Rings and feel like I'm enjoying nature by looking at all of the New Zealand countryside. It's either fake or artificial or digitized.
Totally tick free.
Yeah.
Um, that scene with all, I think they were wildebeests, or I don't know what they were, but they were just like covered in bugs. Do you remember that
Oh,
scene?
right. Yeah, I think it's just kinds of bison or something.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was like there's flies in their eyeballs, but then there's also like bees or some kind of stinging bugs
Mm.
kind of on their backs. Yeah. Mm, I always get weirded out by bugs, but yeah, it takes someone like we had Carol Colanino on today that was talking about fish in the Mississippi. I need someone to remind me why we shouldn't just have mosquitoes banished from the earth, and then someone's like, well, if we didn't have mosquitoes, that would totally mess up fish. First of all, I'm sure that would mess up bird life too. Like there is a food chain there. So as much as I would like love to just cast a spell and wipe out mosquitoes, like I guess that's kind of what we're reading this for, is so humans don't wipe entire species out and then find out the hard way, like, you should listen to Doc Brown in Back to the Future when you don't just go back in time and change one little thing and then everything changes. Because that's what this whole book is, a series of um, unfortunate events regarding very specifically why you shouldn't meddle, why humans shouldn't mess with stuff in the natural order of things, because then you have unexpected consequences. And
There was that whole scene towards the end where they like gassed that orchard, and then all those bees were just laying on the ground, twitching and
yeah,
dying. That was awful as well.
yeah.
The last third of this movie, I could have lived without, I think, just from a feel good standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I think that last third is exactly why this guy
It's the
made this movie.
right.
Like
It's
he's
the
building
power
us up
core.
to appreciate how it was, and then showing us how awful we are now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a humbling and sobering thing to read this book and to be aware. At the same time, a lot of us struggle to take on any kind of um, change
Yeah.
and responsibility. Um, but yeah, the last line of this book is saying that just having, or maybe it's the last line of the documentary I was watching before this, but it was the other documentary. Just thinking about this is the start of getting change done and doing all this. But at the same time, Carrie and I have been talking, and the conversation usually goes to having hope in the younger generation. And it's like, well, I mean, change needs to happen now. We can't raise toddlers to do better than we're doing.
Yeah, and
And
that's putting a lot of responsibility on other people, right? Like, you're gonna fix it, it'll be fine.
yeah, that's the whole mentality. The fix for this is like, oh, well, I'm gonna keep, getting a new iPhone every 2 years.
Yeah.
You kids can fix everything after I'm gone. It's like, don't worry about me. I'm gonna drive my fossil fuel stuff. You guys figure out something better.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough. It definitely feels like change needs to happen soon. And I wish I had more answers for anyone that has questions about what we do.
Does anybody have questions?
There is no question yet. Yeah, we have.
Is
Anyone's
anybody
watching? If anyone has questions or has anyone seen Seasons, feel free to chime in. So, yeah, our viewership has, ebbed and flowed as all viewership happens to do on Facebook. And right now, I don't know if anyone's got any questions. So, any closing thoughts on Seasons, Les Saisons?
Glad I watched it. This is not something that I would have picked to watch just on my own for fun, but I'm glad I did.
Yeah, well, I guess the way I usually wrap these up is when we pass judgment on these is not even thinking about like Goodreads ratings or Letterboxd ratings, but more you got 5 credits for Canopy. This is going to cost one of those 5 credits per month. So do you think this is a worthy spending of Canopy credits? I think so too. I think this was probably my favorite of between this and Anthropocene. Anthropocene is such a downer from the get-go that this actually feels kind of cool. I feel like I could put this on anytime and have it be background viewing.
I'm gonna play it for my cat all the time now, apparently.
Yeah. I will also say if you have run out of Canopy credits, this is also on Amazon Prime, but some of us don't have Amazon Prime, so Canopy is something great to use with your Edwardsville Public Library card.